I have been on a journey to be someone. And along the way, I learned the secrets. It's your friends, the people you choose to spend time with. My life, health, and wealth have been changed forever by the people around me. And now it's time for you to meet my friends. This is the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang. Welcome to the Be Someone podcast. I'm Michael Hoang, and today we are here with Jeremy Davis. Jeremy and I have been having a lot of fun chatting in the pre-show meeting. What do we call that? A preamble pre-show meeting? I don't know.
The
But
pre-party.
the pre-party. There we go. Um, Jeremy is an absolute killer in the real estate space. He is based in Salt Lake City, right?
Yep.
Did I get that right? Okay,
Yeah.
good. And he has been killing the game both there and nationwide. And so, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, it's great. So Jeremy and I know each other through a number of real estate groups, and we're in a mastermind together, and we've known each other for some time now. But I want to ask you some questions about how you got started in real estate. So
Yeah.
what got you interested in the space?
All right. You ready to travel back in time like 15 years?
Let's do
All
it.
right. So in my 20s, I was a paramedic. Specifically, I worked in Hollywood and I was sitting on movie sets, right? That's what I did. I handed out Tylenol, tampons, whatever the actors needed, and I was bored. I was super bored, like 18 hours a day just sitting there wasting away in a chair. So every chance I got, whenever I had time off, I would always go ride my street bike through the canyons of Malibu. And so one day, August 1st, 2010, I got hit head on by a Harley. He crossed the double yellows, lost control, and hits me head on. And it sends me 150 feet off the cliff. I break my back, my shoulders, my arms. I got airlifted out. And the recovery process was about 2 years of painkiller addiction and just a lot of recovery. So,
Whoa,
yeah,
you look
yeah.
amazing I didn't know this about you, man.
Not many
Like
people do. Yeah.
you do not look like a man who was thrown 150 feet off a cliff.
I still have a lot of pain internally, but it's, I worked through it, trying to stay in shape, kind of like keeps the bones together. So you see, like I'll always have my arms crossed a lot. So usually to keep my shoulders in place so they're not like slouching down and like hanging on the pins and the needles and all that stuff. So where was I? Oh yeah. So 2012 rolls around and it's time to buy real estate. Anyone who knows, that was the time. We had come out of the recession, the market was back on a rebound, and we all saw that we had hit the bottom and now we're all going up. And so I had a lot of cash saved up and I had perfect credit, but I didn't have a work history because I was out on disability. And so I went to a couple of real estate agents, and looking back now, the knowledge that I have with creative finance and all that kind of stuff, I really regret that. What did I do? I thought a real estate agent was the authority. So I trusted their opinion. I trusted their advice. And they all said, you can't get a loan, Jeremy. You can't buy a property because you don't have the work history. You should go get a W-2. And so I took their advice and I started serving tables. I went back to that only for the temporary purpose of getting a W-2. And just like, most entrepreneurs, most of us that are probably listening to this, we can't stay stagnant very long. And so I started off as a server. I moved into being a chef. Then I became a private chef. And then eventually I ended up being a sommelier. Here in Utah, nobody knows what that is, but that is the wine guy, right? So I was working in Beverly Hills at probably one of the best restaurants in not only the nation, but the world. And I was the dude that it was my job to convince you to spend $25,000 on a bottle of grape juice. And so I did that for a while and I enjoyed it. Like, let's be honest. I'm having great food. I'm having great people that I'm working with and like drinking a lot of drinks and having fun. But when COVID finally hit and everything shut down, I sat there and I went, this is not what I wanted to do long term. And, so I sat there for a number of months when COVID hit, playing video games and just trying to stay busy and not be bored. Like all of us, we were like, what's happening? What's going to happen when we were all sequestered into our homes and stuff like that. And so for me, I sat there and I went, I'm done. I'm done with this career. I'm done with Los Angeles. I'd been born and raised there. I lived there my whole life, but politically wise, I never really was a Californian. I love the outdoors. I love stuff like that. And so I started looking for an outside market and I went, I'm going to go all in on real estate. And so I remember I pulled up a Google map and I went out, above the nation. And I'm like, all right, what city or cities appeal to me the most? And I thought to myself, okay, If I'm evacuating California, that means other people are as well. And so that means that you've got the entire West Coast. Where are they going to go? And so I looked at that. I'm like, all right, Washington, Oregon, they're going to Boise. San Francisco and Los Angeles, they're going Phoenix or they're going Vegas. But all of them together converge with a backstop that is Denver. They don't want to keep going to Denver because that's a blue city or a blue state. So they stop right in Salt Lake. And it turns out that the calculation was right. Salt Lake was the fastest appreciating market during COVID. Like the market here was on fire. It was stupidly on fire, in fact. But I moved here. My wife and I came to visit one weekend, and then 30 days later, we moved here without knowing anybody. And I will admit that it was scary for me to give up my career. But the other reason I chose Salt Lake, and Salt Lake people are not going to be happy when I say this, the food here freaking sucks. It sucks. I'm sorry. There's no fine dining. The liquor laws are fucking stupid. Forgive my language. You could bleep that out. But like, I moved here knowing I was going to burn the boats behind me. And that's one reason I chose this market, was because it wasn't going to have a great fine dining scene that I could hold on to my career. And so I basically never went back to the restaurants again, and I went all in on real estate.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I hear that story a lot about people being sequestered during COVID. I just have to share that I guess I was a little spoiled. When COVID hit, I was grounded for 2 weeks to sit at home and get paid. And after that, my rear end was back on a plane. So for my job at the time, I've talked about this before, but my job at the time, I was either flying or driving to a different city every single week for work, and I was only home on weekends and holidays. And our COVID plan, because we were essential workers, was to you continue to travel. Here's some face masks and hand sanitizer, and continue to travel. And it was nice. I had whole rows of planes to myself. The hotels I would stay at, all the floors were shut down except the first floor, because there was like 20 people in like a 20-story hotel room. So they kept us all on the first floor. So traveling got easier for me during COVID. And I got to see, but I was also fortunate, obviously I consider myself fortunate because there was a lot of pain and a lot of suffering people went through. I still had a job at the time. We didn't get any raises or COVID bonuses or anything that happened to like my friends that I know in the medical field. And we had to cut some of our corporate programs, but things like I got to see cities, West Coast cities, Midwest cities. I got to see them pre-COVID, and I got to see them after COVID, and there was a big permanent change. And that's all I'll say about it, is there was a permanent change that still exists to this day. And I'm retired from the corporate world now, but at that time I was doing real estate and I was traveling for work, and that was people tell me all the time that they were stuck in home going crazy. That was a really great time for me in my job, because like highways were wide open. There's parking everywhere, and I can see why when conspiracy theorists tell me that everyone wanted things to stay shut down longer than it need to. I can agree with them because I got to see firsthand what it was like. That's about as far deep into politics as I'd like to go on that one. Yep. And so you said you got into real estate in 2012?
So 2012 is when I started learning about creative finance, right? So the problem is that I didn't have enough passion. Like I fell in love with being a chef, and then I fell in love with being a sommelier. And so I really wasn't putting all my heart into real estate, even though I was helping out. I was dabbling with some flips and touching a couple of properties here and there and learning more about creative finance, learning about option agreements and things like that. But it wasn't until COVID that I just said, I'm going all in. I'm not going to dip my toe in the water. I'm diving in, all the way.
That's awesome. And then, so when did you buy your first property, or flip your first property, or wholesale, whatever you did? When was your first transaction?
Flip property was probably like 2016 in California, but then building my portfolio started in 2020.
2020. All right. And was your first transaction a flip, or did you wholesale first? How did you get started?
Great question. All right. So when I moved out to Salt Lake, I was going to go all in on flipping. That was my goal. I had a lot of money saved up. Like I said, while I was on disability, I was getting paid. I was also making good money as a medic, and I had a lot of money saved up. And so I come out to Salt Lake with the intention of flipping properties. And I remember how hot the market was here. We were at like I think we were at like a 3.3% appreciation month over month. at one point. That means like a $500,000 property would appreciate 150 grand in 6 months. It was stupid.
We had something similar in Houston for a period of time, month over month
Right.
appreciation like that for a period.
So I went to here in Salt Lake. It's not in all markets, but here in Salt Lake particularly, most wholesalers will do a showing for their property. They'll try to get all the buyers in one spot for an hour bracket in one day and have everybody make a bid, their best and highest offer. Right? That's some markets don't do that at all, but Salt Lake absolutely does. I think I toured something around 75 or 80 properties, all being sold by wholesalers, and I got outbid on every single one. Every single one. And it was getting really frustrating. So finally, I found a property I wanted. I wanted it so bad. It was in a country club area. It was a perfect fix and flip opportunity. I knew I would do really well on it. So I bid 120,000 over asking price.
Wow.
They call me and they say, "Congratulations, you won." And I go, finally. So they go, we're going to give you a call tomorrow to get all the paperwork sent over. We'll get our dispo manager to do that. And, congratulations, Jeremy. Fuck yeah. So next day comes along. I don't get a phone call. I reach out to them. They don't answer. I reach out the next day. They finally answer and they go, "Yeah, we decided to sell it to a friend instead." And I go, "Did the friend make a bid in the period of time that you said to make the best and the highest?" They go, "No, it came in yesterday. And we're just going to be selling it to that friend. Super sorry about that, but good luck on the next one." So I said to them on the phone, I said, "Congratulations, you just made me a competitor." And so I took my money and I went all in on marketing instead. And I said, I'm just going to find the deals. I'm sick and tired of working with these wholesalers that are shady. They don't have the best practices. They squeeze all the money out of the deal already from their assignment fee. So that's when I went all in on marketing myself.
Yeah, we have a similar story in that, Jeremy, because I would have never started doing direct-to-seller marketing if I could have hit the numbers I were trained on by buying from a wholesaler or a realtor or anybody, anywhere. And at the time, when I first started really underwriting properties, I think it was, I don't know, 2016 or 2017, and I hadn't bought anything at that time. I was underwriting stuff, and I was like, oh boy, an ROI of 3%,
Whew.
Yeah, exactly. And so like we were taught one thing about like how many like what the LTV, the loan to value is and how to do the Burr method and everything. And you get out there and it was like, if it was close, I would have pulled the trigger and let someone else do the hard work, but no such thing existed. And then I've heard a lot of stories about what you said about a wholesaler calling you up and saying you've got the deal, congratulations. And then they call 3 more people and say, hey, can you outbid this guy?
Right.
And then you get outbid like that. So I'm open to doing deals with wholesalers. I've talked to many in my market. I have relationships with a few here in Houston. Still to this day, I've never closed on a deal with a wholesaler. I'm still open to it. And if you're a wholesaler in the Houston area and you've got a deal you want me to look at, shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's at Michael B. Someone. But I haven't done one yet, but I'd love to say I finally found a wholesaler that does business the right way. Probably the most common thing I've seen, Jeremy, is that they overpay, right? They lock things up too high. They overpay and they overpromise to the seller what they can get. And then they market it around to their cash buyers. And then when they can't sell it, they just tell the homeowner, oh, I'm sorry, like we couldn't get anything done.
You sir are a better man than me. I actually don't want people to send me wholesale deals because I'm tired of like opening emails that just never work. I'll tell you, 99.9% never work out. They're not a deal. The money doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense at all. So for me, I've essentially just given up on that, which is also why like the students that I have, that's what I'm trying to help out with. Hey, let me help you figure out the numbers rather than you just sending me some just piece of just yuck. Yuck.
Yeah, but I feel good challenging a wholesaler on this. I said, what makes you think it's worth this much? And the rehab numbers are never correct. We both know that. The cost to rehab the property is never correct. But I just ask them like, well, what do you have it under contract for, or why do you think this is a deal? Why do you think it sells for that? I just always challenge them and talk to them like that a little bit. And you can see which wholesalers really know what they're doing and they're just looking for the biggest fish, and which ones maybe came out of like a little 3-day boot camp or a little seminar and they're out there just making offers and putting stuff under contract. I personally would never put anything under contract that I couldn't close on. I didn't have the ability to close on and I didn't understand was a deal. I think that wholesalers that are doing that are just overpaying on paper,
Yep.
but knowing the deal will never close. I don't think that that's how we do business, but I see the practice is common.
Let's take that as an opportunity real quick, guys. If you are a wholesaler that is listening to this, the biggest problem is when you guys don't understand your rehab values. Let's talk about that. Just 2 days ago, I got sent from a guru their cheat sheet for wholesalers on what their rehab should be. And they were saying that a 3,000 square foot home on a heavy remodel was $60,000. Let me tell you right now, guys, that is 10-year-old information with materials before COVID. Right now, like we're finishing a 3,300 square foot property, and the renovation is $220,000, right? And so to be more realistic, sure, if you're in some like war zone area of Ohio or Indiana, maybe you might be able to get by with having the lowest quality materials. But if you're looking for quality flips, I'll tell you this. If it's going to be a lipstick fix, meaning carpet, paint, maybe a couple of fixtures or here or there, you're going to be between $15 to $25 per square foot. Most properties are going to be more on the medium rehab, where you're going to be probably between $35 to $45 per square foot. And by the way, let's exclude any major components, right? HVAC, roof repair, things like that. You're going to tack on $5,000 to $10,000 for each of those on top of that. But then if you're going to be in a more of a luxury neighborhood, you're going to be at about $75 to $100 per square foot. So just keep that in mind, guys. Square feet, keep to those numbers. That's the deals we're doing left and right. And so I'd say $45 to $50 per square foot is pretty much average across the board right now for any B plus type neighborhood.
And also keep in mind that this is recorded in 2025.
Thank you. Yes.
And a lot of us got started by reading books that were written in the early 2000s or 2014, 2015. And so we have to adjust our expectations.
Yeah, if you're listening to this if you're listening in 2030, let's just bump those up to it's $150 per square foot. And each property you sell, a 1-bedroom in Los Angeles, is going to be worth $14 million. Okay.
We'll see. In 2030, if he's right, go to Jeremy Davis's. What's your Instagram?
The Jeremy Davis.
Right. Go to the Jeremy Davis on IG and find whatever his most recent post is in 2030 and DM him or comment on that post and said you're right or you're wrong on the Be Someone podcast.
Love it.
Let him know. Let him know how that worked out. So you talked about how you first got into doing your own direct to seller marketing, where you weren't going to buy from wholesalers or realtors anymore. Can you tell me what method did you first use marketing to find that first deal that actually closed?
I've always been direct to seller. So I'll be very straight to the point with that. For all my students that I work with, there's a fork in the road. When it comes to marketing, let's talk about that real quickly. You have one of two choices. You're either going to be on market or off market. On market, a lot of gurus out there are teaching on market because it's the lowest barrier of entry. It's the least amount of friction, right? You can pick up your cell phone. You can go on Zillow.com. You can find a property. There's the agent's phone number. You don't have to skip trace. You can literally make the call. You're talking to an agent that is not wishing death upon you. Their job is to listen to your offer and present it to their client. It is a much easier conversation. It's kind of like if you want to lose your virginity, talking to an agent is like walking into a brothel. Like they're there to make you feel wanted, right? They're there to rub your shoulder and stuff like that. So, that's on market marketing, but it doesn't mean you're going to get quality. You're not going to get any home runs. You're barely going to get any like 2 base hits. It's going to be a bunch of small base hits. Why is that? Is that agent going to allow their client to sell their property at 50 cents on the dollar? Absolutely not. And if the agent is like, if the client is like, I absolutely want to sell my property 50 cents on the dollar, then the agent's going to go, I'll buy it. Or I have another investor that I'll use. And I've had that happen to me dozens of times, dozens and dozens of times. That's actually one reason here in Salt Lake, we do a CE course here for all the brokerages to teach them more about creative finance, which is instead of me spending time with the client and with the agent on a conference call, only for me to teach the agent how to steal my deal. Now I'm just teaching a bunch of agents the basics of creative finance. And I'm saying, hey, bring me your pocket listings and I'll be the buyer. Right. So that was a really good step. But as I was saying, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So what you're saying is that if you're looking for cash deals, those are better found off market. And if you're looking for creative deals or owner financing subject to, those are more likely that you can find those through on market with an agent.
Yeah, the biggest giveaway for on market is going to be days on market. I'll put it this way. What I search for, if I'm giving subject to offers, I am searching for low equity or to no equity and longer days on market. And why is that? If someone's, let's say, selling their property on the market for $500,000, but their mortgage balance is $450,000, that means that after closing cost and commissions and fees and all that stuff, they're at the break-even point. But what if that property at $500,000 is overpriced? What if they could only sell it for $475,000? That means they've got to come $25,000 out of pocket if they're going to drop down to that $475,000. So when we're talking to agents that have a client that's been listed for over 90 days and their price hasn't really dropped, that's a pretty good indicator that they don't have enough equity in their property, especially if they bought it within the past 2 or 3 years, right? It means that they're not able to drop their price. Like one of the last properties I just picked up, actually it's about 2 blocks from where I live right now. The exact same situation. The property is worth $470,000. They weren't able to sell it to have it be listed on the market. Otherwise they'd have to come out of pocket. So instead I gave them $2,500 down. Yeah, $2,500. And right now it's rented. It rented right away. The first month I got it rented, I did not put $1 into the property. Nothing. I didn't clean it. I didn't do anything to it. I just listed it for rent. And right now the property is renting $300, grossing $300. Now, that's not incredible. I'm not happy with $300. I'd love to be more than that because gross is $300, net basically about break even. But here's the thing. In 10 months, my $2,500 is paid back. My return is infinite. I bought a property with none of my own money. I'm okay with that because here in an appreciating market like Salt Lake, a $470,000 property by the way, I owe them a balloon in 8.5 years of $7,500. So I promised them I was going to pay them $10,000 versus instead they would have to pay $10,000 to sell their property. I took over their mortgage. I started making those payments. And in 8.5 years, I paid them an additional $7,500. My question to you is, a $470,000 property today, what is that going to be worth in 8.5 years?
Yeah, it's going to be worth over $470,000 by then.
Exactly. And by the way, in 8.5 years, if you're listening to this podcast, comment on what that property's worth. But anyway, to the point is that
and then not only that, along the way, Jeremy, that balance on that mortgage is being paid down for 8.5 years. And you're getting tax deductions and tax write-offs along the way while you're holding that property. And it was a win-win for both the seller, you, everybody gets paid. And real estate agents can't bring these kind of solutions to their clients. You know, if the house is in great shape, it's fully rehabbed, it's modern, the seller has equity, the seller wants to sell on the market, they're good waiting 30, 60, 90 days, they want strangers in their house and doing showings inside their yard, they should absolutely go with an agent. But there's lots of properties in the market today when we're recording this that have problems that agents cannot solve for them. And people like Jeremy and myself are here providing those kind of solutions for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what year did you actually do your first deal? Your first direct to seller?
That was 2020.
2020. Okay, yep. Awesome. And then what marketing channel did you use to find them? That
would have been cold calling. So that was cold calling. And I'll tell you right now, I mentioned the joke about going to the brothel to lose your virginity. Uh-huh. I did something similar, but I went to a really, really slutty neighborhood called Gary, Indiana. Okay. If you don't know what Gary, Indiana is, it is a war zone, man. It is when I was buying out there or when I was marketing out there, I remember there was an arson that lit like 27 houses on fire and nobody even cared, right? Total war zone. That being said, I picked up my very first property. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. What do you think I picked it up for?
I don't know, Gary, Indiana. I don't know, $100,000, $50,000,
$2,200.
Wow.
$2,200. Like I said, it was a lay down, right? I slept with the 700-pound woman in the back of the bar. And so I got it for $2,200 and then I sold it for $6,600. And that was my first proof of concept of like, okay, this is what wholesaling looks like. Because being in Salt Lake, it was really competitive here. And I just needed to like kind of get the cobwebs out and get it going. So once I did my first deal in Gary, then I started doing more nationwide. Because I was a very good negotiator and a very good closer, I started helping out with a lot more JVs as well. So I helped out other students in my communities and went from there. Then finally, I'd say the slow progression moved towards only Salt Lake, where I just went a lot deeper than a lot wider. And so I had a lot more marketing channels. I created a lot more relationships, meetups, and things like that. But to answer your question though, but before you said like what marketing channels are there? There's on market. I primarily do off market. Off market is where you're going to get your home runs. It's more expensive. It's more tedious. You have to understand marketing and you have to understand sales, because it's not just giving a letter of intent and hoping they accept. It's you've got to negotiate with that seller and dig into their pain. You have to solve their problem to make the deal actually work. But when you do that, direct to seller is going to be the home runs every single day. That's where you make your big bucks.
I see. And for our listeners, on market is when they have a signed listing agreement with a real estate agent. Typically, there's a sign in the front yard. It's listed on the MLS. You'll see it on Zillow. You'll see it on all these other websites. And so if it is listed with a real estate agent, in my opinion, you should be talking to the real estate agent. And if it's not listed with a real estate agent, sometimes sellers will tell you, yeah, I have an agent. But if they haven't signed the contract, they don't have an agent. At least as far as I'm concerned here in Texas. And so Jeremy's telling you the home runs are an off market. People who've not signed with an agent, people who don't understand all the options that could be out there, people that don't understand that investors can close quick in cash, typically 30 days, but sometimes we can do it as quick as 7. And if title's clear and everything's open, there's people who've closed quicker than that. And that's not something that the MLS can offer. That's not something that an agent can typically offer either. So 2020, you went direct to seller. You found a deal in Gary, Indiana, and you did it with cold calling. How did you fund? You wholesaled it, so you didn't have to fund anything on that, right? It just
Nope.
The contract went from you. The seller signed a contract with you, and then that contract got assigned to the end buyer. How did you find the end buyer on this one?
Facebook groups. If I remember correctly.
Groups.
Yeah, Facebook
Love
groups.
it.
I think I found a group in like Chicago, and Gary's just out of Chicago across the border. And so I think I made some posts and I said, hey, I'm looking to assign out a deal. And I remember it's really funny, actually. I remember I had a lot of potential buyers hit me up. And there was one woman in particular, and this one's going to stick with me forever. She goes, I'd like to talk to you about a strategy to see if you're okay with it. And I go, what's up? So we hop on a phone call and she goes, would you seller finance me the property and I'll make you payments and I'll pay you the entirety amount in 1 year? And I go, I'm open to the conversation, but keep going. She goes, here's my plan. I want to get a crackhead or a heroin addict that has a contractor's license to live in the property and fix it up for me while I let them live there for free. And then after they fix it up, I'm going to sell the property and then pay you your money. Would you be open to that?
No, I would not. No, thank you.
Nope, not at all. No, thanks. So I'd say from start to finish, and this is truthful, from start to finish, I think I got my first deal under contract and sold in about 2 to 3 weeks for my very first deal.
2 to 3 weeks.
That's fast. Just to be very clear, guys, if you're listening to this, you've never done a deal, 2 to 3 weeks is insanely fast, especially that like to build out a marketing campaign and start generating leads and putting those leads into a follow-up. It usually takes 3 months to 6 months to start to see real traction. But the difference is, like I said about Gary, Indiana, the conversations you have with people in markets like that are far different from a major market that you're looking at. Like if you're in Salt Lake or Los Angeles or Miami, everyone knows their property is worth gold, if not platinum or adamantium. But in Gary, Indiana, they're literally saying, please just take my title. I don't want it anymore. Pay off the taxes. I don't want this property. I don't want to have any responsibility over it. Will you please just take it? It's a totally different conversation where you can make 100 calls and out of every answer that answers, 90% of them are going to say, yes, actually, I do want to sell my property. I've been trying to sell it for 5 years and nobody wants to buy it. If you drive down Google Maps, if you drive down Google Street View and you see that property after property has boarded up windows, that's going to be the easiest deal to get under contract, but it's not going to be the easiest deal to dispo. Finding buyers for that is going to be more difficult, but I got lucky with finding a buyer that bought my 3-bed, 2-bath for $6,600.
Wow. And what'd you do with the profit you made on that wholesale
Put
deal?
it right back into marketing. That's when I hired a VA and I started going, scaling it out from there.
That's the way to do it. That is the way to do it. You didn't go buy a watch or buy your girl a purse. You didn't go spend a weekend
Nope.
somewhere. You put it into your business. That's right. You put it in the marketing machine. So, what does your business look like today? I'm sure it looks completely different than it did back then. What's it look like today?
So I mentioned a VA. There was a point where for about 2.5 years, I had a VA company that I started, and we had a little over 100 VAs in an office in the Philippines, in Zambales, Philippines. We had I enjoyed that a lot because I really enjoyed training the agents and how to talk to sellers and stuff. We ended up shutting it down in February of last year. Reason being is that if you know about 10 DLC and TCPA laws, cold calling and SMS became much more difficult here in this type of market, in this industry. And so getting a new client, like 4 years ago, a new client can sign up for a cold calling campaign and be up and running in about 2 hours. Then it changed. Now they had to get an EIN. They have to get the EIN approved, and a lot more goes into it. So I started taking a lot of my bandwidth away from the VA company, and we decided to shut it down in February. Then we went all in on creative finance, building the portfolio, and fix and flips. And we did that essentially for the entire like 4.5 years, something like that. Now, it's hard for me to say this out loud, but I'm putting a slight pause on my real estate business. Now that I'm moving into coaching, and for me, coaching is more of a passion. In the communities that I've been involved in, I've done probably well over 1,000 deals JVing with students, but I've never asked to be paid for my time. And it's been always something of like a moral dilemma that I've never wanted to be classified as a coach because I always thought that they were there only for money. But for me right now, the reason I'm putting my real estate business on hold is the vast majority of my students are actually here in Salt Lake. And that means that for me to feel comfortable with them talking to me about a property, I want them to know that I'm not marketing to the same property. I want them to know that I'm not taking information they're getting from that seller and then handing it off to my acquisition manager and having us lock up the deal with that secret information. Like, I feel like it's important for me from an ethical standpoint that if I'm going to be teaching people how to be successful, that I can't be their competition directly. That's not fair to them. If I was a student and I was starting off, I would not want to have my coach be someone who's a top player in that market stealing deals from me. So I'm putting it on pause temporarily. I will go back to that, but essentially my model now is I will use my entire team for acquisitions and dispositions and transaction coordination to help them do their deals. So JVing, joint venturing, that's the goal. I want them to get their deals across the finish line, and that's what I'm applying my team towards.
Wow, that is a really good approach. I've definitely not seen many people in our industry take the approach like that. I love that you are creating an even playing field for your students in your coaching program. Um, so you're still marketing, but you're winding it down, right? In Salt Lake City, where you're based. But how you're marketing right now in Salt Lake? What marketing channels are you using? How are you getting deals right now for your own marketing?
Most of my deals are coming in through relationships. I'd say the vast majority of them. And I think I mentioned I do a CE course for the agent. So I get pocket listings and things like that. But we were at, before I decided to wind it down, we were at about 55,000 a month in marketing spend. We were PPC, PPL, SEO, direct mail, cold calling, SMS, you name it, all the things. But I'd say that relationships have been the strongest play right now. So I host meetups, and again, while I'm there on stage, I'm there to say, let me help you get your deals over the finish line. Like, there's so many new investors that are, especially in creative finance, that it's the fear of that seller saying yes, and they don't know what the next steps are. That's where I want to step in and help them get it over the finish line.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember when I said yes to my first deal and put a property under contract, and it was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this thing. I knew it could be wholesaled, and I
Right.
know someone who could help me dispo it. They had a disposition company, and dispo just means find the end buyer, sell it to the end buyer. And then I was like, well, I'm going to try to flip it. I can't flip it. I'm going to wholesale it. And one day I'll be able to hold real estate as a rental. I'll be a buy and hold investor. And what it turned out is that if you find a good deal, guys, all the other problems you have are going to be solved, because I found a good deal that I thought I was going to flip, maybe wholesale if I couldn't flip. And someone said, well, why don't you just talk to a lender? Why don't you just talk to this hard money lender, private money lender? And then they said, why don't you talk to a conventional lender? And it turns out that I could keep this property, rehab it, rent it out, and keep it and add it to my portfolio. So my first deal that I thought was impossible for me to hold on to went right into my portfolio. And then the lender that did the conventional financing came back to me and said, "Hey, you could probably, if the deals look like this, you can probably get 10 of these things in your name." And I was like, "Oh man, I can have 10 rental properties?" And they said, "Well, no, you can have more than 10 rental properties. Just the first 10 we're going to use this kind of loan on. And
Right.
once you run out of these 10 conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac products, we have another loan product called a DSCR loan, and we can keep getting you more and more in your portfolio." And so if you just learn what a good deal looks like and put it under contract, you can do anything you want with it. Flip it, keep it in your portfolio, wholesale it. Jeremy can help you JV it. You said you're running meetups in Salt Lake City. How could someone find those meetups if they're in Utah and want to come see you?
Yeah, I announce it across my social media. So the Jeremy Davis at Instagram is going to be great. We also have a Facebook community. I just changed the name on it. I think it's Creative Finance and Wholesalers of Utah. I think it is. But I want to talk about a deal real quick that we're in 5 days. We're actually closing escrow on to
Go
just
for it.
kind of like structure and support your point. So the best deals that can be done, while obviously if you could make quick cash, like on any deal in wholesale, that deal fantastic. But when it comes to creative deals, if you can structure creative into a flip, this is where the most amount of money comes into play. Like for example, you can do a BRRRR, and you just explained what a BRRRR is: a buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat with a DSCR loan. You can do that. But instead of having to buy it, there's also a SIR. So it's a subject to rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, which means that you're able to keep that property with an existing mortgage at a much lower price than you would be paying for like a hard money lender, right? So for example, right now the deal we're closing, a little over a year ago, we have been discussing the options with a seller that was going through foreclosure. And for weeks we were trying to help this person, and they started ghosting us. And so we said, okay, we're gonna back off. We're not gonna press the issue. Finally, the day before their auction, they hit me up and they say, please, 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 will you make me an offer? And I said, what's your arrears? And they just found out what their arrears are. And if you don't know what arrears are the back payments, the money that you've missed paying to the bank. Their arrears were $118,000. And you go, how was this not foreclosed on prior? Well, it was wrapped up in a bankruptcy. And so the bankruptcy allowed the bank to not require the payments, but something fell through the cracks. So the homeowner went 5 years without making a single payment to the mortgage at all. So they go to me and they say, please, 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 will you help keep us in the property? Normally I would say no. But if there's a certain circumstance where, let's say they do have enough equity in the property where if they were not to move out, you can sacrifice some of their equity to pay you off. It's kind of a security blanket for yourself. That's what we did. So, but here's the problem. What hard money lender or conventional lender would come in with $118,000 when the property was still wrapped up in a bankruptcy, which meant title could not transfer? Nobody. So that's because of relationships. You then find your private money partners, the people you've worked with in the past. And I went to one of them and I said, hey man, you happen to have $118,000 that I can get from you in the next hour? And he goes, what about? And I go, don't ask, just trust me on this. So he literally wires $118,000. We send it to the title company. The title company then sends it to the bank to reinstate the loan. We let the family live in the property. We talked to the bankruptcy attorney, and the attorney's like, oh, yeah. You should be getting the bankruptcy released here. The court should release it in about 2 weeks. Well, it ended up taking about 5 or 6 months. So the whole time I'm like, please have the bankruptcy release, right? So otherwise we'll never take title. Well, what we said was to the seller, we said, once the bankruptcy is released and we're able to take title, we would then have you move out. And when you move out, we're going to give you some money up front to help you with moving expenses. But then you're going to allow us 12 months from the date of your moving out to rehab the property and then pay you the remainder of your equity. So what we did is we kept them in for 5 or 6 months. I forget exactly what it was. Let them live there rent free. So we paid the mortgage. And then when they finally moved out, we started rehabbing the property. So we picked up the property for $490,000. Rehab was $220,000. And we are listed and under contract and closing in 5 days. We're out of due diligence, so we're closing at 997. So we're making about 280 something thousand dollars on profit on this property, all because of creative finance. And so now, granted, the private money partner, he made out really well on this one. Do you want to know what he did for the property? Nothing. Did he do anything? Did he clean anything? Did he fix anything? Deal with the contractors? Nope, that was all me. But because of his $118,000 coming in less than an hour before the auction stoppage was, the deadline, because of that, he allowed this property to actually become reality. And we're going to each make about $140,000 profit when everything's said and done. So to that point, the good deals, when you get a good deal, you will find the money. You will find the partners. You will find the opportunities to make that deal go over the finish line. And the best way to do that is direct to seller, just to reinforce that.
Nice. And so your private money partner, well, let's back up. Let's define this. So a lot of us have heard of hard money lenders, and then there's private money lenders, which are individuals with their money, usually in a self-directed IRA. It could be in their checking account, could be in a solo 401k. These people are not businesses that are professionally lending. It's individuals lending their own money to you. And then there's something that a lot of people in the creative space do, me and Jeremy included, called private money partners. And so for certain deals, we'll offer a partnership instead of a lending relationship where they can have equity, upside. You can structure the deal however you want, but typically a private money partner may or may not be receiving payments as the deal goes along, and you'll have some kind of split that you'll work out with them. So private money partnerships means that usually we're giving up more of the upside, but we're taking the lender along with the ride, and they're taking the same risks that we are. You're a very good man to offer private money partnerships, Jeremy, because a lot of people will not do it. They will only allow you to be a private money lender.
Let me be very, very clear here, Michael. I hate private money partnerships, but no one's going to lend me at 10% interest $120,000 with no title or insurance. So to bring in the private money partner, that was the whole reason. This was a really risky play for them, but because they trusted me and I said, listen, if I don't get this money, I lose the deal. So it's kind of like, I'm okay getting a partner in that case, but no, private money lending all the way. I actually love hard money lending because if you can get a deal at a low enough price, a hard money lender will come in at 100%, including the renovation value as well. Because if they see the equities in the play, you can get that deal approved within 24 hours. So I love hard money. Private money, on the other hand, I love private money lenders. I work with a lot of them, but if you're listening to this and you're talking about getting your first private money lender, here's my advice. Don't look in the real estate space. If you're looking in the real estate space for a private money lender, it's typically because they are actively trying to be investors themselves, and they're going to be looking for a higher upside. They're going to be looking for 12, 15, 20, 25% return off their money because they're looking to actively invest their money versus if you've got little old grandma that's got a 401k that's, making a 3% return, she'd be happy getting an 8% return over a year or 2 years. And so most real estate investors that are lending their money out, they want their money back in 6 months. They don't want to be in a long-term play. They want their money back as fast as possible with the highest amount of return. So I would say if you're trying to find private money lenders, why I keep saying that? Private money lenders, try to find people out of the real estate space that are just looking for a good stabilized return, or find people that have never done a deal and they're looking to attach to you to where they might be okay being in there for a year or being at a 10% interest rate with the advantage of learning about the deal from you. And by having the experience of having someone hold their hand through the deal, those are the other ways we get private money lenders.
Yeah, I love how you broke that down. Yeah, a lot of my private money lenders have not came from other real estate investors. They've came from people that have busy jobs, business owners, retired people that want a safe return. Maybe they don't like the stock market, or they have so much money in the stock market they want to diversify away from it. And they look at it, and I look at it like when you buy stocks, you're getting a piece of paper, right? But when you buy real estate or when you invest as a private money lender into real estate, you're getting dirt and bricks and sticks. You're getting something tangible and something real. And you're also not giving the money to the investor. If you're my private money lender, you're not giving me the money. You're wiring it to a title company. and we're giving you a promissory note, we're giving you a deed of trust, we're giving you title insurance. And so if I just vanish off of the face of the earth, the house is yours. You own it. And there's ways to structure that to make it very easy for you to take that back. But I like how you said search outside of real estate circles. If you find a private money lender inside a real estate circle, it's likely that it's going to be like a big brother or coaching situation there. They want to be like you one day. And I've done it both ways. I've had both kinds of private money lenders. I think it's great. I've never used hard money, but as you said, Jeremy, when you're doing high volume and a lot of people, hard money lenders are very professional. Hard money lenders can perform quickly. They usually have bank lines, or they have pools of money they've raised. They have
Yep.
lines of credit. They can fund very quickly. They're going to require more paperwork, but they're a very professional operation. And if you're doing high volume, at some point you will run out of private money, and you will have to incorporate a hard money lender in there. And when you're just getting started, I like to tell new people to use a hard money lender when they're getting started, because the hard money lender will keep you on track. Okay, because a typical deal with hard money is like, let's say the rehab is $30,000. I mean, they're not. The rehabs are upwards of that these days. But for easy math, let's say the cost to fix up the property is 30 grand. They might do 3 draws on a draw schedule. And what that means is you're going to pay 10,000 in rehab. You're going to call the hard money lender and say, come out and let's do a draw inspection. And the inspector is going to look around and say, it's good to go. 1/3 of the job is done. The hard money lender is going to wire you the next 10 grand. You're going to give it to the contractor, and you're going to go through the next phase. You're going to call when it's done and say, I'm doing inspection. I'm ready for my next payment. Inspector's going to come out, says, look good to me. And what that helps you do is, yeah, it moves a little bit slower. And I think you got to pay like $150, $200, maybe $250 to have a draw inspection. But what that prevents from happening is you getting near the finish line and you're going to get your appraisal and you're trying to refinance out of your hard money or private money. And you find out the windows are leaned against the wall and the flooring's held together with bubble gum, and the countertop's not installed, or the sinks don't turn on. And so when you're using a hard money lender, their draw inspector that goes out is going to make sure that that to the best of their ability that the job is done, it's done right. Because contractors will always tell you things are done when they're not, or they're very close, because that contractor wants their next payment. So
Yep.
if you're new, I think a hard money lender is great. Also, if you're not sure what a deal is, take it to a hard money lender. If they're not going to lend on it, or they say you've got to bring like $100,000 to closing, it's probably not a deal you want to do. Where a private money lender might not be as sophisticated. I have a couple seasoned private money lenders who are like retired real estate investors, if you could use such a term. And they really know like what a good deal is. But if you're working with a hard money lender, they're not going to let you get into a bad deal, because when you go into that bad deal, it's with their money as well. And then it's kind of up to you to execute. And I wanted to kind of back up a little bit. You said with your private money partner, you couldn't get title insurance on this deal because of the
No,
state.
we couldn't get title. We couldn't get ownership while it was
You
in
couldn't get
bankruptcy.
ownership. Okay, so what was your private money partner secured with?
Nothing. My
Nothing.
promise.
Did you do
That's
did you do a
that
promissory note?
Nope, nothing. He
Okay.
Again, we've done a number of deals while he was a private money lender to me, so he knew I was an operator that he can trust. And that's, again, guys, like I'll backtrack real quick to hard money. The first time you work with a hard money lender, it might take a little bit of extra paperwork. They're gonna ask for due diligence and all that stuff. And you're right, they're gonna check on draws and things and all those natures. But imagine a hard money lender, kind of like a drill instructor at boot camp. They're going to make sure that you're pulling the pin of that grenade correctly and throwing that grenade away from you and not dropping it at your feet and having everybody blow up. That's what a hard money lender is actually a value to a new investor versus private money lenders. What we see a lot of right now in certain communities, there's a lot more private money lenders coming in that are being promised a higher return, 20, 25, 40, 50%. And what is that doing? Is it's bringing in somebody that has money but doesn't know how to underwrite a deal, and it's connecting them with an investor. I'm using quotations here if you're listening into the audio. It brings in an investor that is so desperate for that person's money that they'll pay them a 25, 40, or 50% return because they can't get the money anywhere else. And now what are you doing? You're putting an amateur with an amateur that doesn't know how to execute a deal correctly. And now we are seeing so many defaults on loans that I'm part of a Facebook group of all these lenders that are every day I see this person hasn't paid me back. How do I get my money back? And so again, hard money, guys, is fantastic. And especially if you get that property under contract at a low enough price, if you get that property at 50% of ARV, right? Meaning, let's say the property is worth $200,000 ARV after repair value, and you can get it for $100,000 and it only needs $30,000, going back to your example of renovations. That hard money lender will not only fund you the purchase price, but they will also fund you the renovation expense, and they won't even ask for payments up front. They're not going to ask for monthly payments. It's all on the back end because they underwrote that deal correctly with you, and they go, yep, this deal has enough equity. I feel safe investing in this. Even if my borrower just messes up everything and drops the grenade at his feet and everything explodes, I can still foreclose on my borrower, and my deal still has enough equity to protect me and sell the deal as it is. So yeah, to that point, there you go.
Yeah, I love that explanation you give. Yeah, so your private money partner gave you 6 figures of money with no security, just a relationship and a handshake. You didn't do a promissory note or anything, an unsecured promissory note?
It was, and again, if you're listening to this, guys, I don't recommend that, okay? And if you're lending money at $120,000, get a promissory note, but we had to move so fast. So I think it was the wire transfer cut off at 3 p.m., and I finally got the money from him at like 2:40. So like, wow, we had to move so fast. So I'm like, trust me, just trust me. Like, and again, my title agent, my escrow officer, she knows me very well. She knows the deals that I do. Like, she was also able to back it and told him, hey, even though Jeremy can't give you title right now because we can't because of bankruptcy, she goes, I stand behind it as well. So again, having your circle of friends and you all do deals with each other, you begin to realize like, there's money in this deal. Even if the bankruptcy didn't let it up, we would figure out another strategy. We'd figure something else out how to sell the property. Whether maybe it would be a novation where we'd have to, essentially force the seller to sell it with them being on title. Nonetheless, there's a lot of ways to fix that. But yeah, if you're lending money, try to get a promissory note at least.
Yeah, a secured promissory note, secured to the real estate. And it's okay if you're, depending on what you're looking to do in the equity in the deal, it's okay to be second position. I've heard of people doing third positions, but you want it secured to the property. You want to understand what position you're in. Yep. When you lend. Most of my private lenders will only do first position. I have a couple that will do second position. But I like what you said about people being promised such high returns as new private money lenders. I was at a conference in Dallas, and a guy who I could tell was kind of new to real estate walked up with his phone in his hand and said, hey, are you looking for private money? I said, I'm always looking for private money with the right people. And he said, well, what kind of returns can you promise me? And I said, depends on the deal. Let's talk more at another time. Here's my contact info. And he's like, I'm getting 19%. Congratulations. Where is the property? He said, it's in Southern California. I said, how much equity is in the deal? He said, I don't know. And I said, well, when are they supposed to sell it? I don't know. Are you getting monthly payments, or did you structure it to go all on the back? He was like, I'm getting monthly payments. I'm like, okay, good. You know that. And I said, well, what happens if the deal goes south? What do you do then? He was like, I don't know. And so I ended it with, I ended it with, you know what? I gave him my card and I said, you know what I can give you? I can give you your money back. I can give you a return. I can get your principal back into your hands. Give me a call if you ever want to do a deal, and let me know how that deal shakes out. I never heard from the guy, but just know that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. In order for people to pay you high returns, they have to make high returns. So I would ask, like, when you're lending as a private money lender, like, where is the money coming from? How are you going to get me paid? Because that guy didn't really understand, like, what's the equity position in this property. That gentleman that I met clearly didn't understand that. And also, you said something about regulations changing with cold calling and text blasting. What were the name of those regulations that came in again?
10 DLC and TCPA. If you look them up, you'll learn more about them. But essentially, there were some major restrictions that came into play. And then with the addition of AI, able to like monitor conversations and text messages and calls, it made it even stricter. But it's essentially step one. You can't just pick up your phone, or you can't just like get a cold call multi-line dialer any longer. You've got to get an LLC. You've got to register that LLC. You've got to get an EIN with the state. Then you've got to utilize that EIN to then register for 10DLC approval. And then you have to work through a carrier where they then flag your account if they notice anything wrong. That means that if you say, hey, Michael, like, are you looking to sell your house? That's a flag. If you do that too many times, your account gets shut down. So now SMS, text messaging, became more like, salutations, Michael. Do you have a abode that you would like to remove from your portfolio of ownership? Like, it was just stupid conversations. And they're like, what? What are you saying to me? So it really became restrictive on SMS. And so I'll say right now, SMS is not dead, but it's very restricted now. Now you have to, if you're sending out your first text message, it has to specifically say, hey, I'm Jeremy with housebuyers.com. If you want to be opted out, just, say no to stop all subscriptions, right? Things like that. So before 10DLC, you can just go wild, wild west. Yo, Michael, can I buy your property at 123 Main Street? Can I make you an offer right now? It's not like that anymore. So cold calling is kind of similar, but it's more about the dials. And if people are flagging you for spam, then there's going to be regulations there. But SMS, it took a major hit.
Yeah, and when I was cold calling, it got to the point where numbers were getting flagged as spam, so we were rotating numbers. First it was like weekly, then it was like daily, then it got to the point where it was like hourly. You had to buy, if you want 3-line dialer, you need to have like 9 or 12 phone numbers that you would cycle in and out. And it just got to the point where it's like, what are we doing here? We're like in a tech arms race with like cell phone carriers. And so that's why I don't see many investors these days using cold calling and text blasting as their primary form of outreach. I know people that do it on a follow-up sequence, or if you've made contact other ways, like through direct mail, or if you do pay-per-lead or pay-per-click. And so that's why I see a lot of people now buying leads. They're buying leads from pay-per-lead and pay-per-click carriers, people who can stay compliant with the laws and are using tech and algorithms and targeted advertising to have an ad pop up, and they're complying with these new laws where they have to like the seller has to consent to their information being shared, and it's a different world now. And so that's why I myself and a lot of people were sourcing leads by buying through PPL. And if anybody's interested in learning more about that, there's a link in the bio of my Instagram. If you go to at Michael Be Someone, there'll be a link there with some kind of offer for pay-per-lead to get hot leads straight to your phone that are all compliant, all legal, and it's working. But I don't know hardly anybody that's using cold calling. It's like it died at that time, and we switched a lot from I always get this confused. I'm dyslexic, so bear with me. It's outbound marketing where you reach out to them, and then inbound marketing where they reach out to you. Yep. So a lot of people have switched from outbound marketing where we used to cold call, text blast, send direct mail. I love direct mail. I actually still think direct mail works, but cold calling and text blasting, I wouldn't do it. To now we're doing inbound marketing where you're buying PPC, PPL, SEO. There's a lot of great companies out there that are doing it. And so I would ask, are you buying leads now in your business today?
Yeah, we will, to supplement some of our lead flow, we will do PPL. A PPC where we control the campaign, or SEO is going to be the best. Direct mail always works well on top of that. But like with direct mail can be like death by 1,000 cuts. If you're not targeting the correct addresses, you kind of can suffer from that one and spend a lot of money quickly without getting any return. Cold calling, I will say this. SMS for outbound marketing is probably dead. It's pretty much dead at this point. SMS, we still use it for nurturing leads that are already within our CRM where they've opted in to receive our calls and things. But when it comes to cold calling, where cold calling can be successful now is not probably for the new investor, but it's more for the larger call center type situation where it's almost like a swarm of locusts, where you target one major city and you pull all the high equity addresses. You pull, essentially every property address, and you just hammer them with a call center. Everybody's on a 10-line dialer, and you just try to generate as many leads as possible. That there is a very successful strategy behind that. There's a couple people that I know that do very, very well at that. But if you're kind of the in-between person, that's where PPL can really shine, because you don't have to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a campaign. where some PPC managers will say, oh yeah, you can spend $5,000 a month, but they don't explain to you that you're going to be limping in. You're going to be competing against people that have a budget that's much higher. And PPL and PPC, you're essentially bidding against other buyers. And so if your top bid is $100 per day and someone else's is $300 per day, that person that's 300 is going to get that lead because that lead is looking for the hotter keyword, right? So for example, if someone says, who buys houses near me? The person who's willing to pay most for that keyword search is going to get that lead. Versus if you're only spending $100 a day on your marketing campaign, you're not going to get that lead of that person that did that. You might get someone that says, who can help sell my property that's listed on the market with an agent right now that doesn't have any equity and I just want top dollar. You're going to get the most unmotivated leads, and that's why PPL is kind of nice, and I'll reinforce that for a second. PPL is nice because it allows you to be able to buy PPC leads, where that's inbound marketing, right? Let's be honest with what that is. It's somebody reaching out to you to buy their property. That means they are motivated to sell now. They want to sell now or within the next 30 days. They have a reason to sell versus cold calling or outbound marketing. They're just saying, yeah, I might sell if the price is right, or I might sell next year when my daughter goes off to college, where then, this is what I teach my students, the number of touches you have to do for a cold call lead is in the hundreds because you're following up with them month after month. You're hoping that they answer the phone. You're dialing them multiple times. And then it's finally you nurture them a year later and they might sell their property to you versus PPC or PPL. That lead is going to be much more expensive, right? Cold calling, $35 to $50 cost per lead is what you're going to spend. If you have a multi-line dialer and you've got a VA and skip trace and all that stuff, PPC or PPL, you might be between $200 to $400, depending on the market you're in. Yes, it is 10 times more expensive for that lead for PPL, but you also only have to follow up with it like a maximum of 10 times. You might be able to close that deal on the very first call. So you have to think about that. Would you rather follow up with hundreds of leads that are not motivated versus a few leads that are highly motivated but are more expensive? Here's the one caveat. Don't do PPL or PPC unless you have a good sales process, unless you can close deals and you know how to talk to a seller. If you're a new investor and you have no idea how to follow a script or how to give an offer or how to underwrite a deal, that's one reason why cold calling is an advantage, because it's very affordable. You can pick up your cell phone, you can make calls, and it's really cheap to do. And you essentially sharpen your sword. You learn how to talk to sellers and get better at making offers. That's when I suggest going over to PPL or PPC, because it's much more expensive, but the leads are much more valuable for you to close. And if you're fumbling your conversation, you have no idea how to talk to a seller, don't go down that road yet until you're at least comfortable making an offer.
Yeah, wow. That was a lot of value you just gave us there. And so how are you recommending your students start finding their own deals direct to seller?
All right. So because I work with my students kind of like on a one-on-one fashion, I do provide access to me to hop on those calls. So what I first say is, let's talk about your budget, right? Let's talk about what you have for marketing expense. If you are on a cheaper budget, we're going to look at cold calling. We're going to look at pulling niche data, because here's the thing, cold calling still works, especially it works if you're using your iPhone. It's not a spam likely, it's your real phone. And so if you learn how to pull niche data, foreclosures, trustee sales, probate, things like that, you still are talking to high valued sellers that might become a lead. And if you can generate that as a lead, close it, make the money, reinvest it back into your marketing. But if let's say they decide to say, I've got money for PPL or PPC or direct mail, I go, great. Let's structure that. Let's build out the right campaigns. Let's show you how to do that. And God forbid you get a seller on the line that's like, yes, I want to sell today, and you don't know how to close them. All you have to do is say, hey, can you hold on 1 second? Can I dial in my partner real quick? And then I see a call on my phone from John Smith, my student, calling me directly. That kind of signifies to me, I need to answer this. So I go, hey, this is Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, I've got someone on the line right now that wants to sell today, and I know you're the guy to make the offer. And they just hands it off to me, and then we JV a deal together. Everybody gets paid. Boom.
That is amazing. That is awesome. So hand dialing on your cell phone still works for niche data. But do you have students doing PPL or PPC?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
depending on their
Remember,
budget.
guys, PPC, I recommend PPC heavily if you have the right PPC manager. You could bring it in-house, but I really think that for the cost to bring in a very valuable person, I've got people that I work with that they understand PPC, they're on top of the market, they understand the keyword strings and all the changes, and it's super affordable. It's like $500 to $1,000 a month for them to manage everything for you. But you're also going to be spending, I'd say personally, $10,000 is the sweet spot. You can get up to, like I said before, we were at $55,000 a month before I kind of tiered down. But the more you spend, the more leads you generate, the faster you can scale your business. And so PPL and PPC, I'm totally behind it. Just make sure you know how to close a freaking deal.
Okay. And do you have like KPIs for like what they're spending, how many to put a property in a contract, and then what's the dispo? So you want to walk me through KPIs for kind of a newer investor that would be in your program?
Yeah. Okay. It's actually funny you say this. Let me pull up a calculator real quick. I have one custom built that I did that goes into exactly what you just said.
I love it.
So
I love it.
first thing you want to do, guys, you want to identify, like, if I'm meeting with a new student, I'm always going to identify what their goals are for revenue for that year, right? So from the day we're meeting, how much money do you want to make in one calendar year? And let's say they say, I want to make $900,000. Okay. I'm using that number for a reason. Typically speaking, you should be looking for your business to be successful as a wholesaler in real estate, you should be at about a 3x return. Meaning that if you spend $1, you should be making about $3 in revenue. So if you want to make $900,000 in revenue in one calendar year, you want to be able to spend about $300,000 in that year over that period of time. If we break that down, that's something like what? $25,000 a month in marketing to get to $900,000 in revenue. $900,000 in revenue is really going to be closer to like what? $600,000 in profit after you take away all of your marketing expenses. But we first want to identify what your goals are. We want to see like what KPIs do you need to hit to get there. If you want to get
and those numbers scale down too, right? So if someone said they want to make $10,000 a month, for example, then you would want like a marketing spend of around like $3,500 a month, right?
Exactly right. It's really easy to track.
People don't have $25,000 a month or $300,000 a year to get started. So
Yep.
you're saying these numbers scale up and scale down. So for a few grand a month, following your program and what you teach, you can make $10,000 a month.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, one caveat to that is for that 3x return, that usually it means that you're employing people on your staff. That means you're using softwares like multi-line dialers that are $300 to $400 a month for the subscription and things like that. That usually means you're spending a lot more money for your marketing. But when you're spending that money, things become consistent. You can start to predict your data a lot better. So you can see if I'm putting out $10,000 a month in marketing spend, then I can expect at least $30,000. Now, if I drop below 30, I have to decide what's causing that. My sales process, are we not getting the sellers down low enough? Or is it my leads are becoming more expensive? That allows you to be able to identify the health of your business, right? It's kind of like next to the hospital bed, the beep, 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 beep. That's able to help you identify if your business is healthy, okay? So with that being said, yeah, you can totally scale that down. But one thing, if you're the solo person and you're making calls from your cell phone, you're not going to be at a 3x return. You're going to be at a 5x or a 10x or a 20x return, because if you just need to use your cell phone carrier with Verizon and you pull up a list that you can get off the county data, or go get a subscription to PropStream or something like that, and you get a deal off that, could you make $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 off your cell phone? Yes, you could. And how much did that cost you? That technically cost you maybe a few dollars or some of your time. That's how new investors get started. That's why wholesaling is so viable, because you don't need to have a budget. But if you're looking to build a business and you want to have lead managers and lead generation and acquisition managers and transaction coordinators and dispo managers, that's when you have to start tracking your KPIs better. And so what we look at is, to your point, what's your cost for marketing and what does that dictate into your revenue, and making sure your business is healthy. And then from there, there's other KPIs you can track, like how many leads you need per contract. Okay, we were talking about cold calling versus PPC. PPC, 10 to 30. Wide range, right? Depending on how good you are at sales and stuff like that, you might be able to even get below 10 leads equals one deal. But let's say, for example, each lead for PPC cost you $500 and you needed 10 leads to close that deal. That cost you $5,000, right? For your business to be able to sustain, you need to make at least $15,000 off that deal. Is it easy to make $15,000 in this market? It is. Our average is about $51,000 per assignment. And that's, again, we're in a hotter market. So, we get a good deal. We're able to assign that out. If you're in Ohio or some of the Midwest states, you're not going to get 50,000 normally. You might get 20 or 30, but nonetheless, you start to identify, okay, if it takes me 10 leads off PPC at $5,000 versus 100 leads from cold calling at $30 per lead, one is $5,000, one is $3,000. The $3,000 is cheaper, but you're having to follow up with 100 plus leads. That's a bitch. I don't like doing that, right? So you start to identify, depending on A, the marketing tool that you're using, whether it's inbound or outbound, B, the market you're choosing. If you're in a really podunk Midwest market, with a village, basically, you're going to get a lot more leads because people are not getting spammed every day by wholesalers. So they're answering their phone. But are those leads hot? Not necessarily. Versus if you're marketing to, let's say, high equity. More people are going to answer their phone with high equity because they're not getting hammered on the phone by bill collectors. Versus a foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, they're not answering their phone because they don't want to answer bill collectors. But if you get a lead from that one, that lead is a lot hotter and more likely to close than somebody you got to follow up with it for the next 5 years. So leads per contract, contract per deal. That's another major KPI. So let me ask you this. If you had 10 contracts, how many of them do you hope to close?
I would say if I put 10 properties under contract, 3, 4 is great. 2, I would be happy with 2 closing.
Okay. So you are more of a risk taker than I am. Okay. Now to those listening, if you get 10 contracts and 10 of them close, that means you are too conservative. That means you're not taking enough risk. You're only getting deals under contract that you see as a home run, that no matter what you do, you're going to be able to sell that deal off. That's 10 out of 10. That means you're not taking enough risks. You're not giving enough offers. However, if you're getting 2 to 3 contracts out of 10 that are closing, that means you're just throwing out offers and seeing what sticks, right? So there's a sweet spot there. And in this business, it's about 75%, meaning that you are taking enough risk to where some deals are going to fall out of contract, but most of your deals, you know how to underwrite correctly, you know how to comp the properties, you know how to make the offer. So with that being said, contracts per deal, we typically want to see about a 75% ratio. And so because of that, you look at, all the leads you generate, the contacts you've made, how many of those contacts become a lead, how many of those leads are qualified leads. Then you go into how many calls you made to make an offer. And then out of the offers you've made, how many contracts were accepted. And then finally, how many deals closed. Those are, in a nutshell, all the KPIs your business needs to run.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a lot of problems. So when I'm the end buyer and I'm taking it myself, it's more like I put 3 properties under contract, 2 of them would close because I'm the end buyer. They're going into my portfolio. And the ones that didn't close, it's usually a seller's personal issue. They want to back out. They don't want to move. Things come up. People disappear. And I've never tried to force a seller to perform. If they don't want to sign, I'm not going to force them to, even though the contract says that they have to perform as long as certain duties are met. I've never sued for performance on a seller.
I have.
You have? Okay.
I have. I'll say this. When I spend time and money and I lock somebody up under a deal and then they continue to shop my offer and they get a better offer and all they want to do is cancel my contract so they can make more money, I'm not a big fan of that. We have a very upfront contract on the phone or in person about, hey, I'm an investor. I'm looking to make money on this property. If you agree to this and you sign this, you are agreeing to go through to the end of the contract and sell your property. Do you understand that? I had one seller that right when we signed, he comes and takes me aside. He goes, hey, Jeremy, I'm a felon and I would love for you to buy me a gun that I really want because now I'm selling my property to you. Would you do that for me? And I said, no, I'm sorry. That is a felony. I'm not about to buy a firearm. And then he goes, well, then I'm going to go sell this to somebody else. And I said,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
called a straw purchase. Yeah,
Right.
a straw purchase. Do not buy firearms for anybody
Right.
else. That is a wild one. I've heard some wild stories from sellers, but I bet he found somebody who would make him that promise, even if they don't perform on it. Because there's
Well, I'll tell you what I did there. I'll tell you that I said to him, I said, I'm sorry, but we are under contract and you will go through to the end of the agreement. And then I got called from an attorney, and the attorney said that my client would like to cancel this agreement. They found another buyer that is willing to pay more. And I said, what is the buyer willing to pay more? And they told me, and I said, let's split the difference. You pay me out right now, and I will assign my agreement over to that buyer. And I did. I think I made $20,000 in one 24-hour period.
that is a very, very good solution you brought to everybody involved. And I'm glad the buyer was real, because sometimes the sellers will tell you I have a higher offer and the buyer's not real.
Yep.
And do you file memos on the property?
You're talking about a memorandum of agreement or a memorandum of sale or a notice of interest? Yes. On almost every property, unless I really like the seller, I will do it no matter what. Because sellers, the saying is buyers are liars and sellers are worse. Sellers lie all the time. And so I will typically file a notice of interest. And if you don't know what that is, it's essentially allowing me to pee on your fire hydrant. And that's mine. That's my territory now. So it's a way of recording it with the county, stating that you are the person that will be buying this property, so that no one else is able to get that contract. It puts you in line. It's like, when there's like a Black Friday sale and someone puts that tent right by the front door of Best Buy? That notice of interest is that tent. People are not happy with it being there, but that tent has the right to be there, right? So,
Yeah, and so what it means is that the seller cannot sell the property to anybody else other than you until you guys work out what's going to happen with that memo. They can force you to be the buyer on it. They can pay you out, whatever you agreed to. So if you file a memo, in Texas, I believe you cannot file a memo on the property unless you have it in writing and consent. Every state is different.
Yep.
Check with your state, talk with the title company and the transaction coordinator. But filing memos is really powerful, because when I got into this business, I thought the main thing I would have to overcome is dishonest competition and unscrupulous actors. But what I really came to find out is that I was having a lot of problems with sellers telling me that they want to shake a man's hand and look a man in the eye and plant 2 feet on the soil, and a deal is a deal, and they love people who are men of their word and the way of the West, and et cetera, et cetera. And then a week before closing, they want to retrade. They talk about they've got a better offer. They want to cancel the deal. So I file memos on everything. Last time I filed one, it's going to be different for everybody, but I paid $135. And it is definitely worth it. And I don't do it myself. Someone else does it for me. You could probably get it done cheaper if you do it yourself and you're filing it in bulk. But I love filing memos. A lot of people do it as a standard practice in the world out there. And it clouds title, so the sellers can't sell it to anybody else other than you. But I like how you solved it there. You just said, let's split the difference. The other seller was real, and they wanted to split the difference on you and get you out of the way, and that's just fine with you, because, hey, man, a quick nickel is better than a slow dime.
Right. It's funny. Yeah. The last deal I did where I got paid out from the memo, we were under contract. We were ready to close, and it was going to be a flip that I was going to take down. And the seller, it's really funny. The wife was ready to divorce the husband because she wanted to sell and he didn't want to sell. And apparently, I don't know the details exactly, but the seller's brother's, the nephew murdered a transsexual hate crime. Like he's in jail for murder, first degree murder. And They go, we need to put our property up for collateral for the bail. And so we can't sell it. And I, without doubting it, it might have been a story, it might not have been a story, but I said, listen, we've already put in a lot of time into this one. I'm going to ask you if this is what you want to do. I'm going to ask you to pay me out, and I will release that notice of interest. And I think they paid me, $8,000. And I was going to be making a lot of money off this deal. The seller paid me $8,000. Wow. Actually, technically speaking, the brother of the seller paid me the $8,000 because they needed the property. So it paid me the
Wow.
$8,000. And then about 4 months later, the seller comes back to me and says, okay, he's in jail forever now. There's no bail. The trial went through and he's in for first degree murder. Can we sell our property to you again?
Wow.
And so we did the deal.
That's
And
wonderful.
so it's like, you know what? It was like hey, here's an hors d'oeuvre of $8,000. And then 6 months later, you get to have the main course. So
That's incredible. So how are you finding the end buyers? How are you dispoing the deals these days?
Dispo is going to be done. I mean, dude, depending on which market you're in, Facebook really is a strong dispo platform because there's so many investor groups out there. I tell all my students that no matter what you do, right when you're starting off in real estate, add yourself to every real estate investor, RIA, whatever it is in your local market, try to add it. If you're in a podunk rural area, find the next major city, right? And so start adding yourself to all these groups. Second to that, you can always do a search for, and I've taught some other coaches this trick as well. You can go do a search in those Facebook groups for the word Gmail or for the combo word down below. What do you think that is?
People, the end buyers posting their email addresses.
Down below, right? So it's usually a wholesaler saying, hey guys, I've got a property. I'm looking for a buyer. If you're interested, comment or post your email down below. So you can do that search, and then now you're going to have a list of all of the Gmails or all of the emails of all the buyers in that certain market. Scrape that, copy and paste it, put it onto a spreadsheet, and then reach out.
Wow.
It's a fun one.
You are really giving away a lot of gold today. Wow, you are. So I'd like to transition to the next part of our show, where I'd like to ask you, like, what does real estate give you the freedom to do? How has it changed your life? What do you
What
enjoy
does?
doing?
Sorry,
ahead.
what's up? I was going to say, real estate for me, I love talking to people. And I don't think I could ever really retire out of like, if whatever I'm going to do in the future, I might be like that little old man that I just need to have a conversation with people every single day, or I would just die slowly, right? And so I don't know, maybe I would volunteer at the local YMCA. I don't care. But my thing is that real estate for me allows me to work with people and help people every single day. And while I'm saying to you on this podcast that I'm making a lot of money over here, I've 10 times that helped other people out of situations they weren't able to fix on their own. And something I don't talk about that's really not a defining factor of myself is that I was foreclosed on when I was a kid. My dad lost his house. Everything from 16 years or younger doesn't exist. I don't have any baby photos. I don't have anything that shows Jeremy Davis of 16 years or younger because we were evicted out of our home or foreclosed on and kicked out. And so for me, stopping foreclosures and helping families out of these situations is really the most important thing. So out of every one deal I do, I probably help 20 or 30 families by just giving out free advice where my opening line is, listen, I am not here to buy your property. I'm here to help get the bank off your back. I'm here to help fix a situation that you may not have the tools to do. Whatever that is, let's talk about it and figure it out. And then as a last case scenario, if you need me to buy the property, I will. Let's capture your equity so the bank doesn't, right? And so that's another way as well.
So you're getting what we like to call emotional income from this job as well, or from
Yep.
this profession, this business. You're getting emotional income. That's not always monetary income, but there's emotional income that comes along with it as well. That is awesome.
I will say this though. One reason that I scaled so quickly was not because of emotional income, but of more of emotional poison. That while you are talking to these people, while many of them are there for your help and they love you and they care about you, and all of my testimonials will show that, there are also other people that are users. There are people that will take advantage of you and just use you and squeeze you out for all of your worth. They'll say, yeah, we'll get you under contract just to delay the auction to help them try to stay in the property a little longer just to work the system. And so for me, the moment that I the moment I hired my very, very first acquisition manager was after I was dealing with a woman who her husband had passed away. And she was living in a care facility, and she, for the life of her, could not go back to the house because she couldn't bear seeing the belongings of him. For, I want to say 4 months, I followed up with her every single week. And she would cry to me every single week on the phone for an hour at a time and just said, I can't go back to the house. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Till finally, I gave her enough strength to say, let's hire an estate sale company. Let's get all of the belongings out of there so you don't have to deal with it. I'll handle everything, and then you can sell your property. How does that sound? She goes, I love that. She goes, Jeremy, I trust you. Go and do that. So I reach out to an estate sale company in an area that I've never worked, and an estate sale company that I've never made contact with. And I told them the story. I said, hey, I want you to go there in person tomorrow and explain to her the whole process of the estate sale and what this is going to look like and all the belongings and, things that are important to her. Are you going to put it into a box for her and all that stuff? They go, we'll give her a call. We'll meet with her in person. So next day they meet with her in person. And then after the meeting, I give her a call and I go, so how did it go? What are your thoughts? She goes, Jeremy, I am so happy that I'm selling my house to you. I go, what do you mean? We don't have a contract yet. And she goes, no, but they had me sign a contract. Dan, who works with you, came in and said that he works for your company and he had me sign the contract with him. The estate sale company had another investor that stood in for my business and met with the seller and got the contract and bought the house thinking that she was selling her property to me. That was the moment that I said, I need to step back from being the person on the phone every single day, following up every single day, because my heart is getting too emotionally involved in these people. And I'm an empath. Like I feel their pain and I get way too involved. So now I purposely put a barrier that I'm only there for the final phone call or like the fixing the biggest problem of it. I'm not there following up with them. That's my lead managers and my acquisition managers.
Wow. You really know yourself and you really know your business. You really built it out in a way that works for you and the people in your business. And I just love to hear how much that how far you're willing to go for sellers. I've went the extra mile before. I've rented self-storage units. I've got moving trucks. I've helped them find places to rent. Some of these people are in really bad shape, and sometimes bad things do happen to good people.
Yep.
And so I always love it when we can help and get a win-win going for everybody. So what book changed the course of your life?
I'm not going to say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm not, because it didn't. I never really enjoyed the book, believe it or not. Everyone always says, oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It didn't do anything for me. And I think it comes from that I just came from a poor family and I never had a rich dad. I never had anyone, like I had no mentor. And so it just never really appealed to me. But I would say this. I would say if I'm thinking about a book, let me turn around real quick.
He's going to get the book, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting the book. Who Not How. For those of you not watching on YouTube, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan.
Yep.
I
Who
love
Not
that
How.
book.
Incredible book. It teaches you how to delegate. It teaches you how to, when you're a new entrepreneur, you are going, yep, there it is. Yep. When you're a new entrepreneur, you're going to try to wear every hat. You're going to try to control everything. I remember when I started in this business that people knew me as being a 50-50 integrator visionary. Now, if you read the book Rocket Fuel, that teaches the whole separation of visionary and integrator and why there's two separate like mindsets to business. The integrator is going to run all the software and the systems and use the spreadsheets, and the visionary is going to make all the conversations happen and drive the business forward. But when I first started in this, I was both a visionary and an integrator. Why is that? Because I was lying to myself, making myself believe that I enjoy spreadsheets because I'm a business owner and I'm building out my spreadsheet. And so everyone started thinking like, oh my God, like Jeremy, you built out the whole communication platform for this other community. Like you must be an integrator. And I'm like, no, dude, I hired somebody to do that. I had the vision of what I wanted to build and I brought someone in under me to do that. And so Who Not How, and also
We're getting two books here, ladies and gentlemen.
The CEO Secret Weapon is another one. These are all about executive assistants. right? And the first hire looking back at it now, the very first hire that I ever hired was a VA to make cold calls. Because quite frankly, you've got to have leads be generated to actually have a business, and that's fine. But the second hire that I should have done would have been an executive assistant. And now my EA, Ava, I love her. She's my favorite. She handles so many things in my business, and she knows me better than ChatGPT does, right? And so she helps me build out my business and like accomplishes certain things. And if you have the ability to leverage out other people's time so you can focus on more money-making activities so that every minute you spend, you make more money. Like when you start your business, your hour should be worth $100. A year later, your hour should be worth $1,000. Now, I don't even know what my hour is. I should probably check that out, but like it's up there. You know?
I love that. We got 2 books, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, hiring a virtual assistant changed my life as well. This podcast wouldn't be happening right now if it wasn't for the team that I have. And you only have so many hours in the day. So I always tell people to automate, delegate, or eliminate at least one thing a quarter. And as soon as it makes sense, hire a virtual assistant. And then when it makes sense, hire an executive assistant. Yeah, and if anybody wants my reading list of all the books that help both me and Jeremy change our life, they're linked in the description of my Instagram. You'll be able to click there to get the books that I read, the books that are on this shelf behind me here. So Who Not How is on that list. And I will be adding The CEO's Secret Weapon. Let me write that down.
By Jan Jones. And you want to know what I actually did with this?
What'd you do?
I actually had my EA read it and do a book report on it and then implement all the things in the book.
That is leverage right there. All right.
I didn't even read it. Anyway.
I like to ask, like, what's a tip or trick that made a big impact on your business, but you've given so much gold today, brother. I'm going to skip that one because you've given more than a dozen tips on this one. And so we're a big believer in the Go-Giver here. I'm sure you've read the book, The Go-Giver, as well. Mm-hmm. And so we like to remind everybody that when you were born, your parents gave from you before they took. If you had a normal job, you worked for 2 weeks before you got a paycheck. The universe works in giving first before you receive. And I always like to tell people the story of, imagine you're standing in front of a fireplace and it's cold during the winter and you're holding the firewood and you tell the fireplace, give me heat first, then I'll give you the wood. And it's not going to work out for you. And so we're big believers in the Go-Giver here. So I like to ask all of our guests, what can you give our audience today?
I want to give the audience access for free to my Discord community that we have. Like I said, we have a little over 12,000 investors on that community. And I'd love to have you guys join. It's going to be free for you guys. If you guys want to go to WHOP.com, WHOP.com/replay. It's real estate play. And I'd love to have you guys there. And we're going to be doing a lot more community activities. We're going to be bringing in higher level speakers. We've got a lot of tools in there. We got everything in there. So it's kind of like the communication platform for some of my coaching students, but I want you guys there too.
That's awesome. I got to get added to that one too. And then what can our audience give you?
I always like gift cards to sushi restaurants. No, I'm just kidding. You know what, guys? I'll say this. Bring me any creative deal you need help with. Like I love JVing. I've done JV nationwide. If you guys want to message me at the Jeremy Davis on Instagram or come into the Discord and go there, that'd be fantastic. And in fact, you know what? Just go into the Discord and look for help there. There's so many investors on there looking to help other people JV deals. If I can ask for anything, it's feed into the community, build the community with me.
That's awesome. That's an amazing offer. And where can people find you? We've plugged it a few times, but go ahead and say it again.
Instagram.com/the Jeremy Davis.
All right. And I am on Instagram at Michael B. Someone. And if you have questions for me, you can text me directly at 832-301-9672. If you have any real estate questions, please text me. There's 832-301-9672. Jeremy, this has been amazing, brother. You have given so much gold to the community. You've helped out a lot of people, and you've even mentioned a couple things I never thought of doing. Man, it was great to have you on here, and I can't wait to have you again. We're going to have you back. I can't wait to hear about maybe next time you could even bring one of your students from your coaching program. We could talk about one of their success stories.
Would love it, man. Thanks for having me, dude. And thank you, everyone.
All right. Until next time.